Dear colleagues, I am sorry that I am unable to be with you in person. I have just been nominated Agriculture Attaché to the European Union, and happily technology can make me present in two places at the same time. So here is what I had to say. The Standards Committee meeting always faces the challenge of balancing the huge schedule within the time limit in order to discuss items between the SC members. Sometimes the chair needs to exercise his discretion and short some discussion, and other times it is necessary to let the discussion flow in order to resolve controversial points of view. At the end of the last meeting in May 2009, I felt it was necessary to have an assessment of the meeting, receive all comments from the floor, and evaluate necessity for improvements to the next meeting. This was agreed, and the SC meeting in November 2009 had its first agenda point on the assessment of the meeting, and important feedback was received, which I hope will allow more productive meetings in the future. Let me tell you about the SC meeting in May 2009. It was held from 4th to 8th May in FAO headquarters. We had 68 documents listed for analysis and discussion during the meeting. As usual, it was impossible to deal with so many documents in one meeting, and to manage this, the SC decided to create 8 small working groups to manage some important and non-postponable issues. Please see the groups in my report. On the other hand, many important decisions were taken, like the approval of 5 drafts ISPMs that are listed in my report. The draft diagnostic protocol for trips palm as an annex to ISPM 27, the drafted phytosanitary treatments, cold treatments for fruit flies as annexes to ISPM 28, were also approved for member consultation under the special process. The background paper and terms of reference for iPPC open-ended workshop on the international movement of grain was also reviewed by the SC for Bureau consideration. The 6 formal objections to irradiation treatments presented in CPM 4 were discussed, and the SC referred them to the technical panel on phytosanitary treatments to determine if the dosage should be amended for both Grapholita molesta treatments and if the TPPT provides advice to the SC on the other treatments where the insect may still produce F1 progeny. The SC also approved 2 specifications which received member comments. There were international movement of used machinery and equipment and forestry surveillance. Regarding the stored products specifications, the SC decided to ask the new steward to address comments and report back in the next SC meeting. 2 new specifications were approved for member consultation, being the inspection manual and the experimental protocol to determine host status of fruits to the fruit fly infestation. The inclusion of environmental and biodiversity considerations in all new standards were discussed because this statement is now present in all specifications for drafting standards as a specific task. For those specifications that were developed without this statement, it was requested the Secretariat insert this in all approved or draft specifications for which an expert working group was not met. Finally, we had discussed which of the 7 draft ISPMs approved for member consultation should be sent in 2009. It was decided to send a revision of ISPM number 12, a revision of ISPM number 7, the design and operation of post-entry quarantine stations, a draft diagnostic protocol, trips palm, a draft phytosanitary treatment, cold treatment for fruit flies, and the deletion of the term beneficial organism from ISPM number 5, Glossary of Phytosanitary Terms. The draft systems approach for pest risk management for fruit flies was approved for country consultation, but was not sent for consultation in 2009. let me tell you about the SC meetings in November 2009. The meeting had 43 documents to be analyzed. As chair, I tried to prepare for this meeting differently. Prior to the meeting, some SC members were requested to prepare a brief presentation of some items on the agenda in order to open and facilitate the discussions. This innovation in the meeting proved to be helpful for the discussion of important subjects on the agenda. The meeting started with updates from the Secretariat in relation to some activities like regional workshops, compilation of member comments by some volunteers, information about an extra expert working group in 2010, and on the international movement of grain, which Canada is considering to host. The SC suggested the iPPC through the CPM encourage member countries to submit comments in English to facilitate review of comments by the stewards. Alternative ways to resolve the situation should be analyzed by the SC in the future. A summary of the SC7 meeting held after the SC meeting in May was also presented. 2 draft ISPMs were reviewed: pest-free potato micropropagative material and mini tubers for international trade, and fruit fly trapping pending TPFF revision of some points of the document. These documents were approved for sending to CPM5 for adoption. Another important part of the meeting was dedicated to the review of recommendations from technical panel of glossary in relation to the consistency of 5 ISPMs and supplement 1 of ISPM 5. The TPG divided the inconsistencies into 4 tables. The first noted the inconsistencies, the second took note of the obvious errors or mistakes, the third was related to Spanish translation, and the fourth dealt with Spanish language preferences. It was agreed that in the future, inconsistencies identified in Table 2 should be corrected whenever the relevant ISPMs are revised and should also be taken into consideration when the SC prioritizes the work program. The SC also modified some TPG recommendations in the first table and approved the recommendations made by the TPG to be submitted to CPM5 in English for noting and incorporation into ISPMs. The SC also decided that the third table should be presented to CPM5 only in Spanish and changes incorporated into the standards concerned. The fourth table with Spanish language preferences should be reviewed by the Spanish language reviewing group. Finally, the SC decided for simultaneous revision of ISPM 2, 11, 21, and separate revisions of ISPM 4, 6, 8, and 18. Recommendations on the ISPM style prepared by the TPG were agreed and will be incorporated in the style guide by the Secretariat as appropriate. The draft on design and the operation of post-entry quarantine stations for plants was approved for submission to CPM5. In relation to draft specification for minimizing quarantine pests in stored products in international trade, the SC decided that it should go to another round of consultation because of the quantity of changes made and the similarity between this draft and the future draft on international movement of grain in international trade. The last SC meeting took a whole day to discuss the specification for minimizing pest movement by sea containers and conveyances in international trade. This issue is very complex and could have an impact on international trade similar to ISPM number 15. The SC decided to have 2 stewards dealing with this specification, and this was approved for member consultation. The SC meeting also discussed the update on the standard setting work program and adjustments to the standard setting work program that will be presented to CPM5. New stewards were appointed both for expert working groups and technical panels. As usual, progress was made but the huge November SC agenda could not address all issues. I would like to especially comment about the standard setting activities. During my own experience in the iPPC framework, I noticed that the new convention text focused on regulated pests. Among them, regulated non-quarantine pests can be regulated only propagative materials, which need to be the main source of inoculum. For that reason, there are pests that are not included in the international agenda because they do not meet the requirements for regulated pests. On the other hand, other organizations like CBD are dealing with invasive alien species that, in some cases, are quarantine pests, whilst Codex is progressing best practices to avoid contamination with pests that cause mycotoxins in grains or nuts. The organisms that cause mycotoxins are pests according to the pest definition, but cannot be under the iPPC agenda because of the constraint of the definition of regulated pests. One of the most significant impacts the iPPC has on the international agenda is ISPM number 15, and in the future, the iPPC role in the international arena will probably be stronger because of the future ISPMs that deal with pest movement in containers in international trade. This is important, but is far from the interest of producers that need support in their routine activities. I believe that iPPC should, in the near future, play a more important role to collaborate with food security and quality of life in our world, in accordance with FAO mandate. I invite you to read my report for final details. Thank you very much, colleagues.